All right, welcome back, everybody. Tuesday afternoon. I'm very pleased to be doing episode number 56 of the Brick Wall with a dear old friend. We've just known each other for a very long time, and someone who's a top-notch corporate attorney as well as now a startup founder. Nickeyea Wilkinson, thanks so much for joining me.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Warren. So good to be here and to be able to reconnect. Yes, after many, many years.
Absolutely. Before we get into our history, I want to mention. So now you're currently assistant counsel of Blue Cross NC or North Carolina. So where in North Carolina are you at the moment?
I am in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is the capital. That's where I am. Yeah.
That's awesome, and that's an amazing position. Come a long way since we worked together at Congressman Ed Towns' office.
It is definitely come a long way. I mean, the journey between the Congressman's office, law school, and then here. So it's been a ride for sure.
Absolutely. So we met, just to give background, because I think it's interesting. We met, I think in around 2009. Or 2008, 2009. We worked together. For Congressman Adolphus Ed Towns. He was the chairman of the House Oversight Committee at the time. You were like the diligent, hardworking scheduler doing immigration stuff, and I was the good for political season, but like, what am I doing in the office? And Al Wilshire, our chief of staff at the time, babysitting me. So I'm happy that we've both come a long way and move on from those days. And I appreciate you not telling those stories on here. No, I'm kidding.
I will not tell the stories. I'll reserve that for another time, another episode.
Okay, that sounds good. So again, you've been doing a lot, since those days. Why don't you take us through your career history and trajectory?
Sure. So back from, when we first met, I was at the Congressman office, like you said. I was doing immigration and district scheduler. And so there I was, responsible for managing the congressman's schedule and handling family immigration matters. And so it was definitely a great experience. And it actually sparked more of my interest to go to law school because it was just up to a point where we can actually help the constituents before they needed an attorney. And so I was like, yeah, I definitely want to go to law school. I definitely want to be able to advocate for people and, just be that legal eagle, if you will. And it's funny because the school mascot that I went to in North Carolina is a eagle. So there's that. So from Brooklyn, moved to North Carolina for law school, North Carolina Central University. And I stayed here ever since. And so post law school, had opportunity to work for CROs and ended up at Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina, Blue Cross NC, where I am currently as assistant counsel. There I handle a wide array of corporate law matters. So it's your transactional contracting and governance, you name it. You name it probably comes across my desk, but it's been pretty good. So as part of, as I mentioned, as part of the housekeeping things, as I like to call it, anything that we discuss here or of my own thoughts does not represent Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina, etc. So.
What is it like saying yes to doing an interview with me, knowing that it has to go across your desk or your, general counsel's desk, to get or did you not have to get approval as long as you give the disclaimer?
Well, yeah. So as long as I'm not going to go into, any conversation or say that I'm representing Cross at all, other than, just saying that I do work there. LinkedIn can tell you that I work there. So
it's just a point. It was just a fact.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's just a fact.
so let's dig in. I mean, again, what, you said like becoming a legal eagle and like taking it to the next step was your impetus for going to law school. Not only, did you study diligently, like I remember you talking about it, but then you got into law school, you pursued your dream and vision and doing that. And obviously now you've ascended the corporate ladder and really, kicking butt. But what was that drive like? And how did you, push yourself to, to get there, pick up, across the country or, far south, away from family, to make that move? What was your inspiration and how does it feel that you've committed to it and you're doing it?
Yeah, so I would say the journey it's definitely been a journey nonetheless. I would say, moving to North Carolina is new. I'd been in the South because I went to undergrad in Hampton, Virginia. And so I was familiar with the South, but still not as far South, not having any family around, and then embarking upon legal studies, something that's totally new. And so it's been a journey. Law school was law school, and anyone who's been to law school know exactly what I mean when I say law school was law school. It definitely required a lot of time, a lot of attention, definitely many sleepless nights, tears, and everything in between. But it was worth it in the end to actually see that I'm living a dream that I had, and still navigating and finding my path and my niche, and what does it look like in the next 5, 10, 15 years, like when you're looking at your career, what does that look like? So it's been good. It's been a ride. I would say it has been a ride.
Was
Peaks
it?
and
I haven't done it, but I've definitely heard about the law school thing from people, and from hearing all those secondhand stories, that makes sense. But what was that like? Since you mentioned that and you emphasized that, what was it like? For law school to be law school with those valleys nights, and law school is a time to hunker down and really get your work done and pump things out, and it's tough. But you're moving to a new environment. Virginia is not North Carolina. It's a completely different network, a completely different situation. So,
yeah.
like, was there a social bubble within law school, or were you able to get out
Yeah.
beyond that?
No, the social bubble was definitely law school. That's all I had really time for. So, I made some really great friends there. Yeah, you have your circle, and that's kind of who you matriculate through law school with for the most part. And so, if anything, when I did have free time, it was hanging out with them, and then it leads to a conversation about contracts or torts. I was a first year, or something law related, and so you don't get too far off off the deep end when it comes to being in law school. But again, I mean, it was one of those life experiences. You're like, wow, I'm really doing this, and this is what it looks like. And okay, yeah, I missed 3 meals today. Oh, I didn't eat at all, Oh, I have an 8 o'clock class I need to read for and prepare, and I hadn't. So let's see if I could cram this in as fast as I can, because you don't want to get called on, because they do the Socratic method where they just call on you randomly. So anytime I heard "whoa," my heart would sink and it would just drop, and I'm like, oh my God, please don't call on me, because I didn't get the chance to read. But those are stories for another time. I mean, law school horror stories.
Fine, we can pitch law schools, and yeah, definitely another time,
Yeah.
or share the horror stories. So you finished law school down there and you decided to stay, but you also graduated law school, like, from, the financial crisis in 2008 when we were working together, which was a terrible time. Like, the congressman opened up a whole unit, for foreclosure help, and we were really fighting for people to assist them. But only 3-4 years later, you're graduating from law school. I know that the market, is tough for attorneys. So, like, how did you find, your first job, and what was that process like?
Oh, it was definitely tough. It was definitely tough. I would say that, it took a lot of figuring out, what do I want to do? What direction should I go into? It took, taking on different type of jobs, figuring it out, reinventing yourself. And, some, of the colleagues, they were very fortunate and to be able to just hit the big firm and do all of that. Well, we had others who had other different stories. And that was one of my stories where I just kind of had to figure it out. And I'm thankful that it did work out, to where I am now. And so, yeah, I mean, it definitely was difficult for quite a while. But like I said, it worked out. And so I'm just thankful that it did.
Yeah, I mean, were you looking for that big law job, or were you happy to have that work-life balance and not, be someone's, I don't know, lack of a better word, just someone's someone's bitch for 80 hours, 90 hours, 100 hours. Like you hear these horror stories, both in medical and in law. Like, you know, if you got to pay your dues if you want to, you know, climb up that ladder. Were you happy to have the work-life balance, or did you find yourself early on? Yeah.
So again, when you're, you know, looking and trying to figure out what exactly you want to do and what you want your career to look like, of course, you want to factor in their work-life balance, and you want to factor in there what fits for you. You're going to also factor in there, you know, the financial aspect of it, you know. And so for me, work-life balance is definitely important because, I mean, you know, you spend so much time in law school, and you know, you're studying, and you're, you know, you get this license, and now you're ready to conquer the world, or at least the legal world. And so you're just trying to figure out, okay, well, what do I want, again, my career to look like, and what do I want my life to look like? How do I strike that balance? Health. And now I am in the healthcare industry, and has been in the healthcare industry for several years now, and I realize the importance of work-life balance, your health, and taking those breaks when you need to take those breaks. And so, no, I was never really a fan of, I don't think anyone really is a fan of working 80 hours, but if that's, you know, if that comes with the territory and that's where you want to be, you're going to do it. You're just going to hunker down and you're going to do it.
Absolutely. And you know, before you know, again, I mentioned earlier you're a startup founder, and I want to, you know, spend a nice portion of time talking about that because it's super important mission and everything you're doing. But before we jump into that, being that you're in healthcare, you've been in healthcare, again, I know you can't get into details of, you know, through your day job, but like from your own personal view and opinions, like, you know, we're dealing with this unprecedented crisis, you know, globally. You know, what's it like to work in healthcare, you know, right now? And, you know, what do you think the next 6-12 months will look like, as far as, you know, people getting care, testing, you know, again, I know you can't opine on everything, but whatever you can share.
Yeah. So I would say from my own personal perspective, and even being around those who are also likewise in the healthcare industry, and I definitely want to say I give much respect for those who are on the front lines, the doctors and nurses, etc. I do want to make sure that I do say that.
Amen.
I think it's no surprise that we're seeing certain health inequities, more so when it comes to like the coronavirus and COVID, and what demographic it tends to impact more, and the underlying health conditions that, you know, kind of makes it more of a problem. So, you know, realizing that, and one, being of that demographic and working in the healthcare industry, I just see, I honestly see a lot of healthcare workers, those in the industry, lending their support, trying to, or I shouldn't say trying, having conversations, tough conversations about what healthcare looks like for certain people, versus other people. I think there's definitely a need for more conversation. But you know, I'm proud. I'm proud to be in the healthcare industry during this time, because I get a bird's eye view of some of the initiatives that are happening around. And I also have an understanding that I probably wouldn't have had I not been, right? There's also more of a sense of compassion that you probably wouldn't have. Of course, we're all human, we're people, you know, you have the expectation that everyone is compassionate about, you know, the well-being of someone else, but to really see that this is a mission that I'm living. I get to live it in my day job, and I get to live it at home in my personal life. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I mean, and instead of just, you know, taking it or, you know, seeing it happen, you know, you're in a position where you can do things, you know, for it, which is, you know, super impressive. And I think having that bird's eye view allows you to see all the bigger pieces and understand how you can impact change, which is cool as it can be.
Exactly. So without getting too political or anything like that, wear your mask, right?
Sure. Honestly, I got my sister ordered me this cool. I love camo. For anyone who doesn't know, I just have to start off this awesome camo mask. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
always have
exactly.
it handy.
Wear your mask, wash your hands, stay 6 feet apart.
It's pretty simple, and it's definitely, I've said it multiple times here. It's not a political issue. I don't know why it ever became one, but
Yeah, I don't know. It's just right. It's just health, and you want to be healthy, and you want your neighbors to be healthy. You
See,
want
we
your
work in
family
Congress.
members
We
to be
can't avoid
healthy.
this. We can't avoid talking. No, but we will avoid talking politics.
Yeah, we will. We will.
We will. Yes.
Although that's kind of our nature, right? That's how we connect. But we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that.
No, so I know, because we have something that's much more important to talk about than than politics. You're now the founder of of oXXgyn with 2 X's. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, oxygen.
Okay, so tell I know, and I know it stems from a personal experience. So why don't you? The floor is yours.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us what
Okay.
oXXgyn is, and then share some of your personal experience and reason for founding it.
Yeah, so I'll actually start. Let me start with the experience and kind of bring you up to how it even got created. And so last year I had a health scare where I had to have emergency surgery. It was Labor Day weekend. I had plans to go out of town, and plans kind of went not like it didn't happen, to say the least. And it stemmed from an ovarian torsion, which is my ovary was twisting because of a large cyst. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't even know that, cyst can cause your ovary twist and all of this. And so I was in so much pain. Now, before I even got to the surgery, I was experiencing pain before. I was tested for diverticulitis, but I was like, yo, you're too young for that. Stomach flu, nope, you don't have that either. And I just didn't know what it was. It wasn't a pain that was like every single day, but when it came, it was really bad. And so that's when I realized, oh, my ovary was twisting. So that was the reason for the pain. But also I had a fibroid, which so many women have fibroids. 26 million women in the US actually are impacted by fibroids. Some fibroids are more problematic than others. For me, it was very problematic. I mean, without going into too much details, it was just like a lot of heavy bleeding, a lot of pain, etc. And it greatly impacts Black women. In fact, it's been dubbed the Black women's disease. And so with all of my health thing going on, I'm a researcher by nature, so I was starting to do research. And I just couldn't find a lot of information, like, okay, what causes fibroids? What's the cure? Is there a cure for it? Nothing. So then I started opening up and being transparent, with my friends and saying, hey, yeah, I had to have emergency surgery. I have fibroids. I have cysts. This is all that's going on. And what I found was, once I opened up and shared my story, there were so many other women that had similar stories and similar experiences when it came to their health care, when it came to the treatment options that were presented to them. Like, that was a huge thing. And then what I found was like, wow, these are reasonably educated women who, are experiencing these barriers, if you will, right? These gaps in the healthcare. And I was like, wow, it just made me think about, well, what about other women who may not be in the same, similar situation in terms of finance, education, and all these things. And I started to look at those other social determinants of health. And then I just got all crazy. And I always laugh at myself and say, I'm the woman of 1,000 ideas. And I was like, well, there needs to be a place where women can connect, where they can share their stories, where we can together bridge the gap in health, in health equity. And so it led me to create oXXgyn, which oxygen, yes, double X, female chromosome, 2X, and GYN, first 3 letters in gynecology, which is the study of women. And so that's how I kind of got started.
That's an amazing story, and I appreciate you sharing. I know that not only here, but like you're saying, when you're dealing with a health crisis personally, you kind of feel alone, and you're hunkered down, you don't know what to do. But it is comforting to know that once you share, that there is this, there's this community of folks who are dealing with the same thing, and and you're not alone. Like they always say about entrepreneurs, like it's always like, oh my God, look at this person, look at Bill Gates, look at Mark Cuban, but the joke is they're always looking down and saying, I'm on the equal playing field and dealing with the same trouble. So So when you
Yeah.
find, folks that are dealing with the same trouble, so, it's important, we mentioned it earlier and you just mentioned now again, but you, before the crisis, were looking into and researching and now building a platform for health equity. So, let's dive a little deeper into that. I mean, what, where is there, because I think a lot of folks don't know, we hear it, it's a buzzword, but it's way deeper than a buzzword. Where do you see, gaps in health equity, that, could be closed, with your platform?
Yeah. And so I think one aspect is just like the type of care, the access to care. There's a large group, or I would say population, of just people in general, but in women, when it comes to women's health, it tends to be a gap in the access to care, right? It tends to be a gap in the knowledge. I see an opportunity for there to be questions around family history when it comes to, like, in particular, fibroids. You are more likely to have problematic fibroids, if you are African American. So the limited research says. And then also, if you have a close family member who have it, your mother, your grandmother, your sister. And so many women who I talked to, that was the case. Their mom, their sister had it, their grandma had it, my sister, and so I said, well, why, we ask about family history when it comes to diabetes and heart disease and cancer and other conditions. But yet, when it comes to things like that, we don't really ask, the family history. And I feel like it can help with even doing some preventative measures. So I would say, yeah, access, the costs. Healthcare is expensive, right?
Yep.
In fact, like, again, I bring it back to fibroids because that's just, what experience I had and what impacted me. The cost of that, if it's problematic and the fibroid grows to a point where it has to be surgically removed, like via myomectomy, it costs. It's costs. You have the downtime. Then also you have to look at the impacts of missed work, labor, right? So even that, there is, the gaps are just, I can just go on and on and on. There are a lot of gaps, but if we could just work together to narrow the gap and eventually close it, I think that will be our ideal state. And one way to do that is to have the conversation, do what we're doing. I encourage women to share the stories, look for ways to advocate for yourself, connect with other women, build a sense of community. One aspect of it was the mental health, right? So sometimes we tend to, we're doing better now. When I say we, the collective, we, the healthcare ecosystem, in connecting both the mental and the physical, right? There is a correlation in looking at the total health of the individual. And so for me, I was physically in pain and I was physically, hurt. I had a surgery, but then there was also a mental health aspect that I hadn't even considered until I started feeling, why am I feeling depressed? Why am I feeling anxious? Why am I feeling down? Why am I emotional? What are these feelings, right, that are associated with post-surgery and even pre-surgery, right? The pain. I socially isolated myself, right? So now if I have a sense of community and I can talk to other women, then perhaps, we can work to advocate and have other people advocate us, right? I said it in videos that I've done. We need buy-in from academia, public and private sector. We need the healthcare ecosystem, find where those gaps are and start plugging those gaps.
That's super important. And the sense of community, like whether it's drug addiction, alcoholism, or, real anxiety, pre-surgery or, post, surgical depression or whatever, or, whatever it is. I think that's an emphasis, on that is super important, and why I think oXXgyn is going to be exceptionally successful. But let's get in, since you work in healthcare and this is an issue, an issue like preventative, like how do you if what were the early symptoms that you felt? Like what are the things that, that are signs that, or how do you test for that aside from like family history, maybe you don't know family history, maybe you haven't had conversations about it, but you're a woman, you're sitting, you're in pain, you don't know what's going on. Like, what are the early signs to look for so that you can, maybe get ahead of it before it gets, more difficult to deal with?
Right. So if we're talking specifically about fibroids, one of the early signs is the heavy bleeding. Are you, I'm trying to look for it where it doesn't seem like it would have anyone like run away from the TV, from the from the screen. But if you're experiencing super heavy bleeding, more than normal, you're just, soaking through pads and all of that. That was what I was trying to avoid to say, but there's no other way to say it. And we're going to be transparent.
This is the same. Yeah, no, that's what you're about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So if you find that your menstrual cramps are just really painful, you're feeling lethargic, you find out that you're anemic, you have a protruding abdomen, let's say, more than you realize that, those are some of the signs that you may have a fibroid. When you go to your annual, ask, can you check for that? A lot of it is awareness and education. And until we tackle that fact that it is about awareness and education, I think that there's just going to be a lot of missed opportunities. The research is limited when it comes to fibroid. The education on it is definitely lacking, because of course you need material to educate individuals on. But I think that sometimes we, the collective we again, are our own educators, right? Our tribe, our circle, our family, our friends, our group, our people, you can learn from them. And so that's why it's important for me to have these conversations, because now I can say, hey, yeah, if you are having heavier period, go to your gynecologist and ask them, to see if you may have a fibroid. It's no harm. It's better to do it then, because what happens is if it's not taken care of, a fibroid can grow. And then that fibroid can go to where you would need to have a surgery. I've heard so many stories where, they went to doctors and they said, oh, okay, you have a fibroid. It may not be problematic right now. Let's just watch it. Well, the watching turns into, oh my God, you need to have surgery. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's tough. So, and I'm all about early intervention and prevention. If you can deal with something, head on when it's, first found, or, before it's found, obviously is, that's the best way to deal with it than some traumatic, large swoop in, situation like
exactly.
you have to deal with. So as far as oXXgyn goes, so your platform is, your intention is, is research, information, community, and, hopefully get some, get some funding from the federal government and other people as far as getting that research done so that you can share more with the community. But, that's fascinating. Are there any other aspects of it that I'm missing?
No, that's pretty, I think you summed up fairly well. Again, I think the most important thing for me and for what I'm doing with this platform is to get the information out there, but then also encourage other women to have the conversation. We have to take away this sense of reproductive health or conversations surrounded or centering around reproductive health is taboo, right? It's a no-no. Let's not talk about it. It's too personal. Well, if it's impacting your work, then your employers probably need to know, like, hey, this is probably something that, it's impacting my employee, right? So no longer should it be taboo. It should be an open conversation, because we are women and these are the issues that we have and face. I am glad to see that there are strides being made. Like, for example, with there's a bill right now, 6383, Uterine Fibroid Research and Education Act, and it was introduced by Congresswoman Yvette Clarke in New York.
DK.
Exactly. I was like, all right. And it's, to promote that education, to get people in there. So that's something that we can do, is also like see ways that we can advocate for our health. And so that's what action is about. advocacy, connection, sharing, and bridging.
And the cool thing is, a lot of people say, "Oh, you didn't, cut your chops because you're not bringing about that yourself." But to have that already going on and rumbling, and then to start this amazing platform, that's bringing it to the surface even more with support, clear support, from legislators, I think, will be an amazing confluence of events that will, push the messaging forward and really, help other women who have dealt with a situation, like you.
Yeah. Exactly. So the thing is, again, like using those tools that we have, social engagement. We're in the era of all things, social media, and using technology. Let's leverage the technology that we have.
Absolutely.
And so, that's something that, future state, you look into, but, I'm just looking forward to what's to come with oXXgyn and with other also, and I'm also about supporting other women who are doing similar initiatives, right? It's not just going to be a one and done situation, and it could be more than one. That's another thing that I would definitely say needs change. It's about changing the narrative. And that's one of the narratives that needs to change, is that it could only be one. You have to be the only one. No, well, when it comes to health, we need more than just for it to be only one, because that's the only time you're going to really bring about change, is if you have a lot of people, the collective masses, saying that, no, this is an important issue. Let's talk about it. Let's get the research. Let's get the funding. Let's get the advocacy, and et cetera.
I mean, look at mental health, right? I mean, I once in a while, for inspiration on the business side, rewatch Mad Men or certain episodes. And in the first season, Betty Draper goes to, a psychiatrist, and, the psychiatrist, obviously flouting HIPAA rules. I don't think they were around back then, or in the, timepiece, calling her husband, Don, like, this is what's going on. It was such a taboo, but I think that's come to the forefront on the backs of many, individuals such as yourself, like you, who've, carried it to the forefront and brought it to the surface and made it not taboo. And, to do that in, in other, places in the medical field, especially with someone who has amazing credentials and, work and experience in the healthcare field, is amazing. I have to mention, so normally, we always talk at the end, like, where's your website? Where can you be found? You are in development, and you're quarterbacking this, and you have a full-time job, but this is so important to you and such an amazing mission that you're quarterbacking it in, nights and weekends. So, when can people anticipate this platform being live?
Yeah, so right now I'm primarily on Instagram. That's where I share some of my videos. It started off with me sharing my story through video. I just released a video last weekend about the bill that I mentioned earlier. So on Instagram, you can follow me at _oXXgyn. And hopefully within the next coming weeks to a month or so, we'll have the website fully launched. But you still can subscribe to the website at www.oxxgyn.com.
Awesome. I appreciate you. Your message is super important. It's always really fantastic to see a former colleague and friend's face, and that smile. I'll never forget that smile. Keep rocking it down in North Carolina. And
Thank
you so much for joining me. And we'll have to have you back on, once you're launched, because it's an important thing that I think we should, keep talking about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's keep talking. Let's keep the momentum up. It was so great talking to you and catching up with Warren. It really was.
Thank you so much for joining me.
All righty. Take care.